Hey, good morning, everyone. It's Anne Manera, and we are coloring another page today from Coloring Book, Variety Coloring Book, Volume 18. And today we are working on a page using watercolor pencils. And I'm going to be using Amazrock watercolor pencils, which come in this nifty little roll-up package, Scarlet and Paisley here, of course. And these pencils can also be found in my Amazon influencer shop. If you take a look, there's a link in the comments, and I earn a small percentage from any sales that are made when you shop through that link. I just have to say that, you know, as a disclaimer. But these pencils can be used either wet or dry. We're going to be using them wet today. I have a little bit of water with me, just kind of a little jar of water. And I have a variety of brushes. I have some different synthetic nylon bristle brushes, different sizes. It's really, I think that it always depends on the preference of the person when it comes to using or picking the size of the brush. One of the things that we're going to go over today is the two techniques that you use when you're using watercolor pencils. Now, we're going to be coloring this page right here, which can also be found in my book, Cats and Kittens Coloring Book. And we always want to make sure we keep a piece of paper behind our page to prevent bleed through, maybe pressure, scratches on the following page. There's a lot of talk about paper tooth, you know, so paper tooth is all about the roughness or the smoothness of the paper. And the more, the smoother the paper is, the less tooth it has. And the rougher the paper is, the more tooth it has. When a paper has more tooth, it has more ability to absorb water or any other type of wet medium. So in last week's Color Along, we went over this page, and I took Faber-Castell grip markers, and I used water with them to take care of the background. Now you can clearly see that my page buckled because of it didn't really absorb the water. However, when I used a lot of water on that page. When you're using watercolor pencils, there's two techniques. One of them is to actually take the pencil and dip the lead in the water. Just dip it in the water, which makes the lead wet, and then color with it, and then keep dipping. Dip, color, dip, color, dip, color. Not my preferred method. The other method is to take the color and actually apply it as if you were coloring with colored pencils, and then take a brush and dip the brush in water, clear water, and also spread that pigment. Now, a couple of things that you want to be mindful of when you are using watercolor pencils. Number one, where do you start? You've got to realize that using a wet medium, any wet medium, where are your hands going to be placed? So I'm going to start at the top, okay? The other part that you want to be mindful of is the colors. Now, if you use yellow and blue and you get some water on your yellow and blue and you mix them together, you are going to make green. So the colors will merge together. They will mix, they will blend, you know, the whole bit. So you do want to be mindful of that. So I'm going to start out with this top section because I really want to make sure that I place my hand in certain spots. I'm just going to color this part right here and use this type of technique. And I'm just going to kind of color in the edge there, along the edge, and of each one of these sections. Just kind of make an L here, and up here. Now, what's going to happen is when I use the water, I'm just going to do a little bit of a demonstration here with this one. I'm going to use this brush, actually. A little tiny bit of water, and I'm going to now pull that pigment so that it paints this area. The other part, too, that you need to pay attention to is the cleanliness of your actual water. I mean, think about it. You've got muddy water. It's going to look muddy on the page. So sometimes I have a couple of different... didn't mean for the brush to fall apart there. That always happens to my favorite brush. So if you keep maybe a few different... keep changing your water, or, you know, if you don't feel like getting up, like I don't feel like getting up, a couple of different, just some clean water at hand, you know. And what I like to do is just go through my whole section and then go back and I'll just add water to all of this. So again, I'm just going to color these top sections here with this burgundy color. These don't have names on them, but this is number 033. And then when I go in, it will kind of blend it. Now look, if I've got a dark pressure here, heavy pressure here on the right side of it, as it goes over to the left, it tends to dissipate and get lighter. So again, you could also use these, you could use really any watercolor pencils completely dry. You know, you don't have to use water with watercolor pencils all the time. Sometimes the pigment in a watercolor pencil is actually softer. The lead is much softer than any other type of pencil. So I guess if you're kind of saying, well, you know, I can only afford maybe one brand of pencils, what should I buy? I really like watercolors. I really like regular. Go with watercolor because you can use them for both. So they're very versatile. So again, just kind of coloring it this way. Now notice I'm also using kind of a blending and shading technique that we learned with colored pencils, kind of a basic technique that you can kind of get the dark section there and kind of come out here as a very, a little bit lighter. The more pigment you put down, the heavier pressure you use, then the darker it would be when you add the water. Now for small areas like these circles, that's something where you could actually go back in and use the dipping method. So we'll do that with that section, but let's get this area finished first. And what's cool is that you don't really have to color the whole thing. You know, you just have to kind of add some color there. So there we go. We've got that color sitting there. I'm just taking my clean water, just kind of dipping it so it's not a puddle. Less is more. You can always add, but you really kind of can't take away when it comes to adding water. And then if you notice, it's kind of like a scrubbing technique in a way, where I'm kind of like brushing it over to get that pigment. You know, it always reminds me of, you know, the paint with water books. This would be a cool thing if you wanted to actually spend some time and create a craft for a kid. Maybe take the book, color it with some watercolor pencils, and then give the book to a little kid and have them actually go back over it with color like this with water. That would be kind of fun. I mean, you could easily buy the book, I guess, but it's fun to make a gift. Make a craft for someone. So see how that's just kind of working out? I've got this area here. I'm not really worried about staying in the lines. Doesn't really make a difference at this point. You just want to kind of get that color there. Now I want to make sure before I add any color to the middles, to those circles, that we do not have any water on that. Because again, like I said at the beginning, any type of water that is going to mix or colors that would mix, like I want to really make sure that that is dry when I add that color there. So see how dark this is down here? This becomes very, very dark. Oh, my friend Scarlett's in the background here. So now we just have these last two to finish up towards the back here, towards the right. I'm looking at this thread that is on my sleeve. Okay, get rid of that. Get rid of the thread. And we really just kind of want to make this dry. I mean, it pretty much dries on its own if you just give it a little bit of time. We don't need to break out the blow dryer and start drying things. You know, you want to just kind of let it dry. If you want to tape down your page too, it'll kind of keep it a little bit taped down. So let's add maybe a little bit of yellow in those dots. And I have this yellow, which is number 015. I'm just going to dip it a little bit in there just to kind of get it a little wet. And you can already kind of see that the color is coming off when you do that, just there on my finger. Why use paper? Just test it on your fingers. And I'm just going to color each one of these little circles. I don't really like this method because the color does not really, I mean, you have to keep dipping, you know, you have to keep like, I don't know if it's just laziness or I'm not really sure why I don't like it. I just like the other one better. I feel like I just enjoy the process of using the paintbrush. Now for the middle part of it, I'm going to use a green color. And for this one, I'm just going to kind of give it this is number 045. I'm just going to give it the same pressure And what will happen is we're just going to go over the whole thing with this, with water for these. And I'm going to leave the circles that are inside those with white for now. And maybe we can go back and add a much darker color, but I'm not going to touch those. You could add, you could color over those completely with this green color and then go back in, or whatever color you choose to use with this. And then you could go back in, you could easily go back in and add a different color. I'm going to use a smaller brush for this one. I'll use this one right here. And I'm just going to add some water to these sections. Oh, maybe I don't really like that brush. Okay, let's add this one. Seems to be the brush of choice today. Screaming out my name, I guess. All right. And just kind of adding the water on top of these. So pretty simple, right? Really effective. Looks kind of like a watercolor painting when you're done with it. Staying within those lines. Now, the other part too is that you should remember is that when you're working in an actual book, then you really don't have to worry about the black lines. But if I had printed this page, I would really need to worry about, I would be worried about the color, you know what I mean? The ink from the page. So if you were to print your own page, say you purchased a printable book or a PDF book, and you printed it on your own printer, I would let it dry for about 24 hours before you actually used watercolor pen, water to it, any type of wet medium. Because if not, it's going to, sometimes that ink is still kind of wet. This one is 038 is the number of this pencil. I've had these pencils for a very long time. I don't even know what made me purchase them, you know? All right, so now I've got that color there. Let's do something that's kind of an opposite of that color. And I'm kind of thinking of my friend Orange. And I'm just going to kind of go around and up around that heart. So dark pressure back here. I'm leaving these horizontal lines empty for now. I'm leaving those uncolored for now, because we might want to go back in with those. And there's nothing wrong with adding color to a coloring page with watercolor pencils without the water, right? So you can go back in and make those really dark because it's kind of a thin line. So it almost becomes like a mixed media type thing. So there's that orange. And then once I get the color going and the water going, when I say the color going, I mean as I'm adding the water, right? We're going to pull that color up and we're going to pull this color down. So first I'm going to start out with this pinkish color right here. So pretty, isn't it? It's definitely a pretty pink. And I do want to kind of like, I don't want to go from, I want to make sure my brush is clean before I go on to the orange, because you don't want that color to kind of blend together. We don't want to create mud. So it's almost like a scrubbing technique, you know, to get that, to pull that color down. And as we go down here, see this part right here? We want to kind of have an easier transition right there. I'm not happy with that one. But let's see what we can do here. This is much better. 2 thumbs up for this one, I guess. And the more you just kind of like don't take the brush up off the page and just kind of pull that color down all in kind of like one fell swoop, then it will have more of an easy transition. Or a smoother transition. Smooth seems to be the word of the day today. And the same thing with this. We're pulling up this orange. So I did kind of like an opposite situation here, where I made it so that it was heavy pressure here, light pressure. So it's kind of creating a pattern. And then here again, with this area here. See how much darker that is? Now look, here's an example of my orange got inside my pink. Okay, not a big deal, but, you know, it's like the peanut butter and the chocolate situation. And now here's another one. This is the last one. So I've got, there's all my orange, my pink. I always kind of like how that looks next to each other. Now let's add some blue. Now, I want something that's going to be a little bit of a darker blue. This is 077. And I've got kind of like the background happening behind those little cats. But I think I want to actually work on the cats first. So, I guess a cat could be brown, right? We can make a little brown cat. Let's make him a light brown. This is a light brown. You could also mix the colors. This is number 089. I'm going to do kind of a little bit of a dark pressure at his toes. This is almost like an orangey color, isn't it? And then you could go back in too and add a little bit of yellow. I'm going to add a little bit of yellow on top of all of this. So I'm going to kind of do a very light pressure of this brown color. Right here. And then I'm going to take this yellow color, the same thing we used for those dots, and I'm going to kind of put this where his, the top of his legs are, maybe his chest in here, kind of like right in there, just to kind of add a little bit of yellow into it, so that when we add that color, it will actually blend and create our own color. So here's another little bit of yellow. His tail feels like it should be dark and then light, and maybe have some yellow at the tip a little bit, and then here, and then his little face. Now see, I really kind of want to make sure I don't put my hand on where that that whole section is. I'm just going to do a little bit of some dark part on his dark heavy pressure on his ears. Now I don't want to do inside his ears, because I do want to go with some pink on the inside. So let's put a little bit of pink in there. Heavy pressure of pink in there. This is reminding me of that candy. It's like a caramel type thing. It's like pink, and you know which candy I'm talking about? Add a little bit of a pink nose. So there's a little bit of that heavier pressure at the edges, and then I'm going to go back in and add some yellow around his nose, around this side of his cheeks, kind of here a little bit. And then when we add that water, it will really kind of take on a little bit of a life of its own, I suppose, for lack of a better word. Now this little guy, he seems like he should be kind of an orange guy. So let's see about coloring him this 020. So I'm going to use a little bit of orange here, and I'm going to use the same technique as I did with this guy by bringing up the color, the pigment, all the way up to his chest, lightening it. And I'm going to go back in with my same yellow and add that yellow at the top. Doesn't it make you really think, oh, the anticipation of what is about to happen with these colors. Again, I'm going to do the same thing for his face. But this guy, I'm giving kind of a darker look, maybe just kind of over to the side. Again, some darker ears. Maybe a little bit of darkness under here, light on this side. Some pink ears. A pink nose, and then I'm going to go back in with this yellow just to kind of lighten up his little face. Okay, so what I'm going to do at this point is I'm going to leave that without water until I create my background. Okay, so let's go in with a little bit of red for the background. This one's number 028, and for this one I'm going to add some really heavy pressure to this little corner here, and that's all I'm going to add in that section. Okay, so what's going to end up happening is that all of these little triangles that are down there are going to be left white, because sometimes you need the white to kind of make things pop. So, well, I'm going to go like this, I guess, but I'm just kind of adding some heavy pressure next to that line, and then here I'm going to do the same thing under this side, and then right here. Okay, So what's going to happen is we add this water to this area here. Let's add a little bit of more color here. As we add the water to this reddish section, it will start to lighten and become more of a pink. Now, what other color is going to make that kind of pop that's behind that? And I'm going to go with, I don't really want to go with green because that's going to make it look too Christmassy. So instead, I'm going to go with this yellow, which is number 014. And I am adding my pigment or my color underneath these triangle pieces, so it would kind of be the opposite. Okay, now we've got this top section here. Kind of thinking ahead about the color for that top section. We could go with blue. That would actually look kind of cool, actually. Let's go with the blue. We've got this blue here. Let me see what this one looks like. Not bad. All right, I'm gonna go with blue here. Oh, I don't like how that's doing that. That's okay. We'll see if we can squeak by with a broken lead. We could tape it. Wouldn't that be crazy? All right. And these pencil sharpen really well in an electric pencil sharpener. Okay, so now we're all set to deal with that background. But before we do that, I really want to make sure we have the background that's down here. Now, thinking about different colors, let's go with the green for this one. Kind of this apple greenish color, which is 045. And again, dark pigment at the bottom, so that when we pull the color up, just like we did with this orange, it'll lighten itself. Well, I don't know if it'll lighten itself. We have a part. We play a big role in that lightening, right? So it's not like it's doing it automatically. It's not like you're just, you know, we don't have like it being colored by robots or anything type thing. And I like how these are supposed to be little cans of tuna that are hanging. Or cat food. I prefer tuna. So I'm going to leave those the way they are because I want to go back in. And now we've got the bottom, and I'm going to make it so that they're sitting on dirt. And for this one, I'm going to go with a very heavy pressure for number 090. And I'm kind of using like on an angle. Really heavy here. Light. Then I'm going to take my, this color right here. Here it is. This is kind of a darker brown, number 111. And I'm going to kind of add some dark brown near the toes. So now we have advanced to the blending, which is always fun. So I just think that I always say that if you can master, not breaking your pencil, no, if you can master blending and shading with colored pencils, or you can hone your skills on blending and shading with colored pencils, you don't have to master it, I guess, feel comfortable with it, then you could easily use any medium. Or you could just take the lead out. Just take the lead out. I'm going to add a little bit of yellow to this. And now we are ready to add the water to the rest of the whole picture. All right, so let's start with this blue section here. Again, this is why we did this, right? Why we said we should be mindful of where the water goes, where the water is placed, where your hand is placed, because you don't want anything to be anything to smudge or kind of like get in the way of where you're actually placing your hand. I will say this for this set of pencils, and I don't know if it's true for others, but maybe, sometimes different colors act differently. Like for example, this blue to me is not really blending as well as the others did, blending with water. Like right here, it's like weird. So you could always test your colors before you apply them to your page. Really want to make sure my brush is clean now, because now I'm moving on to yellow. And yellow and blue will make green. So just kind of giving this whole area a yellow tint. Just by pulling that color down. Again, if you use a white bristle brush, it's going to be crispier. The bristles are crispier. So you'll actually kind of like scrub the page a little more. But for this paper, I prefer this nylon brush because if not, it kind of tears it. You know, and that's not what I want happening here. I want to leave those little spaces, those triangles that are hanging down. I'm leaving those white on purpose just to kind of make it pop a little, because sometimes you need that white that's in there. You know, you need a little bit of white to happen. And I'm going to leave this white too for the little circles. Moving on to this last section here. So this is all pink. So I guess we do have a little bit of primary colors happening there, right? I am going to use the green here first before I do those two little cats. I feel like I'm saving the best for last, you know? Saving the little kitties for last. So here I am pulling up a little bit more pigment up top. It's very light. It's extremely light. You can see it, but it's light. It's a light, 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 light green. And this section here, it should be a little bit darker because it's between the two cats. Again, under his tail should be a little bit darker. And now I'm going to start with this guy, with the big guy. So first thing I'm going to do is wet the ears and the nose. Now I could have kept them dry, right? Then I am going to pull down on his ears and stay away from the inside of the ear because I don't want that pink blending in. And look how the yellow is blending with the brown to create just, I don't know, what looks like fur, I guess. Now for this part right here, we have the option to either start at the feet and pull up into the yellow, or start at the yellow at the like underneath the neck and bring it down. I'm choosing to go to the feet first for each one and then pull up into the yellow. So I do think that if you did it the opposite way, you might have a little bit of a different look. So now this one here, we're going to do the ears first and the little nose. And then again, same technique that I did with this, with the guy to the left. Now this guy is more of an orangey yellow. Look how much brighter he got. So for this one, let's start under the neck, bringing this yellow into the orange. Now look, I got a little bit of a pigment of something there. I think it was like a red, maybe a crumb from the red. I'm not really sure. It seems like it's okay though. I'm not going to fret it. And then that part is all set. Now, I'm going to go back here with my land, with the dirt that they're sitting on. Now look at the pigment that's there, because we added a lot of color here. So look what's happening. And plus we added different colors. I added a yellow and a dark brown to the original brown. And look how it's kind of like just taking that, taking on all of those different colors. Now, again, look, I'm scrubbing. I would never paint like this. I would never paint where I was like pushing my brush around. But it's rather than going like this, it's more about the color is there. So you're kind of moving it around to get that effect. And I'm not touching the page. I'm just barely kissing the page with the brush. And there's my dirt. Look at the different colors. Now I do want to go back in and fix where my tuna cans are and add a little bit more yellow, green up here. Because I just feel like it's not as dark as it should be. And if you notice, I don't know if you can really see it in the video, but it's kind of difficult to actually add, or it's not applying, the green is not being applied to the page as smoothly as it had without water. So because there was already water on there, it's almost like it's bubbling a little bit as I add it. All right, so there is that section there, and I'm going to consider that part finished. I'm going to go back in with some red, and this section here with the hearts is completely dry. And I'm just going to go back in and add some red on my hearts in a dry fashion. So I'm not going to add water to these. I am going to use a heavy pressure, so it's completely opaque. Kind of like a burnishing technique. And then for our tuna cans, or I call them tuna cans, but I guess they're cat food cans. I mean, right? Cat food cans. We could use some purple because the purple would be a good contrast to the green. So I'm just going to kind of give it a little bit of some purple on the sides and blend it over to the side. And then I'll go back in with water. I'm going to take some dark brown as for the ribbons that's holding the cans. And do the same thing for each of these cans. It's the same brand. We're not going to be fancy here, you know. This is not like a variety of brands of cat food. My phone is making weird noises behind me. We'll just ignore that. Now, what we could do too is we could go back, like we talked about. Let's try it actually. Let's go back and dip this like we did. Now that even though I already added that color, and just kind of add some water that's already on the brush. Yes, I'm using my finger as a palette. Don't go to the store with me and pay for something because they'll ask what's all over my hands. It's completely non-toxic. It's okay. All right, so there are my tuna cans. Now, I don't know. What do you think about this whole like strip of white for the horizontal lines? Leave a comment in the comments below about what that line should be. In the meantime, I'll make an executive decision and color it a color. I feel like it should be this kind of grayish color in a way. I don't know why. Or maybe it should be purple. Maybe I should pull that purple up. Let's pull the purple up. So I'm going to use a light pressure here for the whole thing. Okay? I don't know if I'm going to add water to this. I'm going to make that decision once it's totally colored. And then I'll decide. I think I might not, now that I'm seeing the second line done. And look, there's a hole in the paper because it was wet. Don't worry. Could always put some tape behind it. Plus, there's a second page in this book that you could use if you wanted to do it again. Color the same page every day for the next year. Some artists do that with something that they draw. They color the same page, or they draw the same topic, same subject matter every day. It's supposed to improve things. I don't think I've ever done that. I don't think I really want to at this point, but... All right, I'm going to go back now with this red color, and I'm going to hit these, it's kind of an orangey color, actually. And I'm going to hit these little dots, not darts, dots, with this kind of orangey color. And then I'm going to call it complete. So, just a quick reminder again about watercolor pencils. You need to be mindful of where you place your hand, because you don't want to put your hand on something that's wet. You can use two different types of techniques. You can either use the dip the pencil in the water technique and then apply it to the page, or you could color the area like we did on most of this page and then add water with your paintbrush. Okay? The other part is that you can always use them dry. You don't have to use watercolor pencils as only wet. Lastly, paper tooth. Paper tooth is all about the smoothness or the roughness of the paper. The smoother the paper, the less the tooth. The rougher the paper, the more the tooth. I feel like I'm creating a rhyme. But that's the best way to think about it. So all of these pages in a coloring book that you would purchase of any of my books, and many other artists too, but let's only talk about mine. is always just this non-tooth paper. If you wanted to take this page and print it on a better quality paper that had more of a tooth, whether it was a cardstock paper or even a watercolor paper, then you should wait at least 24 hours for the ink to cure and dry before you started using it, because for the lines of the actual illustration. If you're going to just use it right inside the coloring book, it's not a big deal about those lines. I mean, you saw today, they did not smudge. The black lines were not a big deal. So thanks so much for watching. You can take a look at the link for this page, which can also be found in my book, Cats and Kittens Coloring Book. It's available on Amazon. Or you can, if you're new to the channel and you're new to watching my videos, then you can also take a look at the Color Along Volume 18 book. And if you're watching over on YouTube, be sure to like, subscribe, and give my video a thumbs up, because it really helps to get the videos seen by more people. So until next time, have a great day. Thank you.